Welcome to Hey Chaplain. My name is Jared Altick, and I'm a chaplain with the police department. It is that time of year again to talk about those spooky stories and things that go bump in the night. This time, we're going to look at San Francisco, and we're talking to friend of the show, Jim Dudley. Jim has been on the show multiple times, and just to remind you, he's a retired deputy chief from the San Francisco Police Department, and he has over 30 years of law enforcement experience. He teaches at San Francisco State University and hosts the Policing Matters podcast. Even though Jim and I both share the opinion that most spooky things can be easily explained by natural causes, that doesn't mean we haven't had a few moments that give you pause as you sort out what exactly just happened. Jim agreed to share a few of his spooky and Halloween-related stories. Here's Jim Dudley. Hello, Jim. How are you today?
Hey, I am great. Thanks for having me on the show.
I am so glad to have you come back. And today we're talking about spooky stories. Let me just ask to begin with, why do some cops have a tendency toward being superstitious?
Well, I think it comes with the job. It's the nature of the job. It comes with training, repetition, right? Do everything the same way. And then you can sort of ad lib if you need to as a situation presents. And so, I mean, I was a creature of habit when I went to my station, got in my uniform, checked all my equipment, made sure I had ammo in my gun. I had one in the pipe, and same thing, religiously checked my car, back seat for contraband, weapons, made sure it was clean, gas in it, and all the lights on the dash were working. And then I was ready to go. And then followed the same habits until I got in the radio car and went out on patrol. And I do believe saving trained my life at one point in my career, and probably several times over my career. But I think more than superstitious, it's just that, hey, it's worked for me so far. I'm going to keep doing it. And I think, you know, when you asked me to recall some spooky stories or maybe some, scary, unexplained stories, they've happened, of course, over my career. But I think there's always a logical explanation. And I've got a couple of stories that I think are kind of funny. And not to say that you go into a place that's creepy and dark and you hear sounds and you're like, what is it? But I think we should be afraid of the other humans out there and not so much the supernatural.
So tell me what it's like being a young patrol officer in San Francisco.
Well, San Francisco, a small town in a big city. We're 49 square miles, 7 by 7 miles on a peninsula. So we're almost like an island. And we love to party. And I've been told several times fighting liquor establishments that we are a wet city. And so the two, alcohol combined with that, wild in the streets celebrations, sometimes not a great mix. And we celebrate, we can go chronologically through the year. We go New Year's Eve, crazy till 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. And then we go to Chinese New Year's and St. Patrick's Day and 4th of July and Halloween. And we have Thanksgiving. And then the day after, all bets are off because it is Black Friday and the mobs downtown are horrendous. And the Christmas season, and then we go back to New Year's Eve. So we have an estimated over 300 scheduled events per year in San Francisco.
Wow. And but, I only heard one of those where everyone is going to be wearing masks and costumes.
Oh, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. So New Year's Eve, masks, and some costumes. There's pageantry with Chinese New Year's, but Halloween, yeah, crazy in the street. St. Patrick's Day, you've got, some outfits and regalia. Oktoberfest, I left that one out. People in Lederhosen in San Francisco,
Of course.
far from Germany. And then we have some where they don't dress up at all, where they just show up in, their birthday suit.
Yes.
The Beta Breakers run. There might be a mask, but that might be all they're wearing.
Oh, wow. Tell me about your episode as an officer responding out on Halloween.
Yeah, Halloween was always, one of those ones where you just sort of like hang on and get out there and take what comes at you. And as a young patrol officer, you had to be fully aware of the context and have situational awareness. And, when it was Halloween, there were indeed people wearing masks and they were dressed up, and it was ubiquitous. I mean, it was strange to see someone not in costume or wearing a mask. And in other times that may seem out of the ordinary or even criminal. Just about any other time of the year, it would be maybe kind of prankish. But it's kind of difficult sometimes to keep that situational awareness when so much is happening. And so for Halloween, early in my career, I remember this one event where with all the people celebrating drinks and costumes and coming down Polk Street, which is the backside of our city hall, a few blocks up. It's stores and shops and bars and restaurants that serve liquor. So people are having fun, and all of a sudden screaming and yelling in the streets. The crowd parts like Moses, and I see a guy running at our radio car with a full-on bib overalls, the leather face mask, carrying a fully operational chainsaw over his head, roaring it up. And I jump out and I feel myself going for my gun.
You were ready to draw down on him.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, picture yourself with a guy running at you with an activated chainsaw. So that was a scary moment. Nothing supernatural about it, but
at what point does he swerve away? At what point did he?
At the point where he sees me outside of my radio car with my hand on my gun, about to pull it out of the holster, and he stops and puts both hands up in a surrender pose to say, "I'm just joking. It's just a costume." And I'm thinking, okay, this is Halloween, and that coupled with the fact that people do kind of go crazy on Halloween, and we get an increase in robberies because there's that anonymity. And so you've got to make that distinction in the moment. And luckily I did. So as far as spooky encounters, I've told this story a dozen times at least. Again, young patrol officer, couldn't wait to go out, jump in the radio car, take on something else. And my partner and I had just finished booking this character at our old station, still just a few blocks from City Hall. And this guy runs in. He's all excited and sweaty, and he's got duct tape hanging from his wrists and stuck in his hair, and he's screaming and yelling and all disheveled. And we finally get it out of him that he had been kidnapped, held at his home, strapped down to his bed, and the kidnappers were probably still there, and he was right around the corner. Guy's barefoot, wild eyes. My partner and I look at each other and say, okay, let's go. So we tell the station keeper, hey, we're going to this call around the corner. He shouts out the address. We run around the corner, take 3 flights up to his place. We are all excited and we're out of breath, and we've got our guns drawn, and we see the door to his apartment is still open. Not the best area of San Francisco. And we crack the door and we see the bed there with duct tape on the 4 posts, and that room is a total wreck. Guy says he was bound and gagged, but they might still be there. So we look around and we're searching, and we go in the closet, and no sign of his captors. So we start to take the report to put out this that these guys are still loose in the area. 100% believing this guy's story. And what color clothes did they have on? Dark shirt, hoodie, jeans, white tennis shoes. Second guy, similar. Could you describe their face? Did they have any facial hair? What color hair did they have? And he looks dead at me and says, "That's just it. They had no heads."
Oh. Well,
and I turn and I look at my partner like this is the biggest prank that somebody set us up. And I'm looking for the hidden camera. But this guy is completely sincere. He
believed it. He believed it.
He believed it.
And he seemed lucid and clear up to that point.
Well, he was excited. And I mean, as you might expect, somebody who had been held against their own will, bound and gagged to be.
Within reason. Within reason.
And so we cancel the lookout for these guys and try to unravel his story. At the same time, we look around his room and notice these big garbage bags full of marijuana and magic mushrooms. Find out he was a merchant seaman, brought all this stuff back, may have had some Confederates with him, and started imbibing. And so probably went on a 3-day bender. If he did have friends with him, they duct taped him to the bed because he was out of control. And at some point, they took their stash, left him with his, and he got loose. In this case, you've got to have all your officer safety gear on, and you've got to be aware, and you have to take it that this guy is telling you the truth. And you go in there, and there might be armed captors in there, and then to find out that they're aliens with no heads. Completely blew us away.
I had an episode one time where I was at church services, and after the services, a stranger approached me, and he came up and he said, "I've got something, sad I'm going to have to tell you." I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "One of these gentlemen here," and he pointed to a person at our church. He said, "He's having an affair, and you need to know that." And I thought, "Oh no, this is the worst news I could have heard this morning. That's awful." And I said, "Well, how do you know this?" Because I knew he wasn't from our community. I'm like, where are you from, and how do you know this? He goes, "Well, I'm from Texas," which is hours and hours and hours away. And he goes, "I'm from Texas, and I'm here on a mission from God. I'm hunting warlocks."
Oh, great!
And I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, turns out he doesn't know anybody in our church. He didn't know anybody in our community. He had just believed that he had this secret knowledge. And fortunately, also, he accused probably about the most stable, reliable family you could ever imagine of being in league with the devil and doing all sorts of. He had a list of things that they were involved in. Sure. Turns out none of it's true at all. But for a minute, for that first moment, I thought, oh, someone's revealing something to me, and I get that sometimes. People come up and talk to me about difficult situations. Yeah. But no, he was not entirely attached to reality.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I told this story I was a group of kids from a high school a couple 100 miles north of San Francisco came down, and I was speaking to them, and they said, "Hey, do you have any funny stories?" And I thought about it, and I told this one, and at the end, their faces all went blank. And one of the kids said, "Oh, that's really sad." And then I could see them all nodding to each other. And their teacher looked at me and said, "Yeah, that is really a sad story." I was like, "Oh, darn it. I should have told the one about the skunk with the yogurt cup stuck on his face." We talked a little bit about, there's a logical explanation for just about everything. And there's people who really believe that it's something that cannot be explained, that, that sound in the night is from something supernatural when we know it's neighbors or creaky floors or what have you. As a solo officer working alone in San Francisco, our district stretched all the way up to the Golden Gate Bridge. And if you've ever been there, just before you get onto the Golden Gate Bridge to the right is the Palace of Fine Arts. Beautiful, from the 1932 Pan American Exposition. And it's still there today, and it's just lovely. People get married by this site, and there's a fountain in the middle and giant swans. It's a beautiful place. And so if you're lucky to live around there, you're probably pretty affluent. I mean, these places go for multiples of millions. And so I get a call. Dispatch sends me on a 917, a suspicious occurrence, not clear of the details. I get there, pull up, walk up to this dark entryway, top of these stairs, directly across the street from the Palace of Fine Arts. And this elderly woman answers the door. She tells me she's living alone. Please come inside, ushers me inside. We go inside, beautiful home. And she tells me the story that her husband had just recently passed away, and she was living in this big, beautiful home by herself. And I thought at first she was just lonely and wanted some company. I was talking to her for a while. But she started to explain these strange noises throughout the house. And of course, I chalked it up to, this was probably a 80-year-old home, squeaky floors, as homes settle, especially during the night. That's, probably what she's hearing. But then she says, no, there's more. And she takes me to the front door, opens the door, and we're standing there, and I'm looking around, and I look at her, and she says, watch. And she flips the light switch, and the light goes on. And I look at her, and she says, wait. And a minute later, the light starts flickering, and she points up to the light. And I look back at her, and she says, that's him. And I said, do you have any spare light bulbs? And she said, I think so. And so she takes me and gets me a new light bulb. And the scariest part of the story is me standing on this rickety wooden chair right. in the entryway about 30 steps from the ground. And I'm on my tiptoes replacing this light bulb. Get down, dust off, and I tell her, okay, flip the switch. She flips it, and we stand there looking at it for at least a few minutes. And I look back at her. She looks at me and says, he's gone.
There's no convincing her.
Yeah, but at that point, it felt kind of comforting that maybe this will set her mind at ease. And so, there was a silver lining to this story. And I'm not going to tell her, lady, your light bulb was just out. I mean, I really saw it as an opportunity for community policing and setting this woman's mind at ease. And, hopefully all was good after that. But, that story stuck with me for, 30 years.
Yeah. People want to have an explanation for stuff. They want to feel connected to things. And so yeah, do you have, so I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of historic sites in San Francisco. If your officers aren't especially superstitious, are there areas where the citizens are there certain hotels or cemeteries or Alcatraz or things like that where people feel like, oh, that's a spooky place?
Yeah, definitely Alcatraz. I love, if you come from out of town and I could meet with you, I would love to take you to Alcatraz. It's one of my favorite places. And I only go when somebody from out of state shows up. But I mean, I say that, but I've been there probably 8 or 10 times.
Yeah.
And during the day, it is so much fun. You could take a lunch and eat outside where, that we had federal prisoners in the middle of San Francisco Bay, and it's beautiful. And you walk through the cells, and if you have the headphones on, you can hear about the stories of the individual prisoners and the guards telling the stories themselves. And it's really just such a cool experience. But I've never been there at night, and people who've been there at the nighttime events tell me it is so incredibly spooky and that they could hear voices when nobody's really talking. And, that they think it is haunted, that they would convince you that Alcatraz is haunted from the, thousands of prisoners that were held there for
there's
years.
human tragedy. There's human tragedy there. And so people often get kind of sensitive around those areas, which another one, San Francisco had a very famous fire 120 years ago. Do you know of any down this street, there was a building, a bunch of people died or something like that? I don't know if there's anything like that that's still lingering that this long afterward.
Yeah, no, I mean, in San Francisco, I think every burial site has been either removed or paved over. And so we have a cemetery out in the Presidio, again, really close to the Golden Gate Bridge. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful area. And I know there's a lot of history there. You can see some, century-old grave sites there. I know people talk about walking through there at night, that they could feel a presence there. I think further down the coast at one of our favorite restaurants, the Half Moon Bay Distillery. It's not quite in Half Moon Bay, but the distillery is a restaurant that sits on a perch overlooking the Pacific. And it was said to have been a drop-off point during Prohibition. So ships would come with booze and drop it off in crates, and people would pick it up and carry it up, and it would serve as a speakeasy. And there's tell of a seat at the end of the bar where if you go there on any particular night, you may see the ghost of a woman who sits at the stool and orders a drink. And I can't remember what drink she orders, but that the bartender may, depending on who's working there, will put a drink up on the bar for her. And then, of course, then, of course, the stories that at some point the drink has been consumed.
Right.
So.
Well, I have friends that you can't leave in a bar where unattended drinks are just sitting out. Yeah, I have friends like that. And so
if it's a Manhattan,
flesh and blood. Yeah.
If it's a Manhattan, I'd be tempted myself.
That's funny. Jim, let me end with this. If you have a spooky situation and you can tell that people are ill at ease and unsettled, as an officer, what's your recommendation for helping to de-escalate and bring calm back to a situation?
Yeah, I think we talked about it a little bit, and that is that, some people want to believe. They want to believe in something. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes there's a touch of mental health issues and might be propped up with some alcohol or drug abuse as well. And so you've really got to understand the individual and listen to the story, invest a little bit of time before you determine what to do next. And I think police are good listeners. In law enforcement, in public safety, you've got to determine if they're a threat to themselves or others or gravely disabled. And if that's the case, you've got to ask them if they want to go voluntarily, or maybe you might have to take them against their will to a psychiatric evaluation center. CIT training, CIT, crisis intervention training. We're giving a better glimpse at behaviors that are not normal, that if somebody's telling us a story, we might dismiss it at first, but I think we do need to invest that time and listen to people and then determine maybe they've got a relative or somebody who could take care of them. Sometimes the worst thing we could do is just leave them to be.
Yeah.
And get them some kind of a help.
Yeah, that's excellent, Jim. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Always happy to talk with you.
I'm so thankful for Jim coming on the show today. He's been a good friend to me and a great supporter of this podcast. I am definitely going to have to take him up on that tour of Alcatraz. Thinking of future spooky story episodes, I believe I already have lined up the one for next year. But if you know someone who has that spooky, unexplainable cop story, I'd like to hear it. Please make sure you reach out to me. There's a link to my email in the show notes. The views expressed here are the personal views of the host and our guest and do not necessarily represent the views of any law enforcement agency or its components. If you like this episode, please share it with a cop or someone who loves a cop. Thank you for listening to Hey Chaplain, and as always, let's pray for peace in our city.